So, Michael, hello in Australia. What time is it with you? Goodness me.
It feels like the middle of the night, but it's only 8 p.m.
Well, it's a more palatable mid-morning for me. So, thanks for taking the time to sit down for a
No,
cross-global little catch-up chat. We've never met in person. We sort of crossed paths, I think, at the
we
Berlin
did.
World Money Fair, but we never sort of actually sat down and met or said hello. So,
Yeah, we
we've
should
been in
fix
the
that. Now
same.
you going to the next World Money Fair?
Yeah, I hope so. And I'd
Yeah,
be very keen to sit down with you then and
yeah,
do
that'd
some
be
collaboration again.
that'd be great because I think even at one stage we were in the same queue, or at least very
Probably.
close to the same queue with Germania, I think it was. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we didn't kind of cross paths officially there, so we'll fix that
No.
next time.
And it was actually it was some of the content from your World Money Fair that got me back on your channel. I'd watched a few bits here and there before, but since then I've had you, as I mentioned when we were just talking, as a sort of background podcast sometimes. And it
Hmm.
was your video all about the raw mint that got me back to your channel to talk about or to listen to what you've got to talk about.
I don't
So
know if that's a good
whether or
thing
not
or a
you want to
bad
go
thing.
there, whether you want to go there today and talk a little about the raw mint, I don't know. But yeah, no, I just want to say I'm a fan. I like your content, like your style content. It's open, honest, and it's good to finally do a little bit of a collab with you.
I appreciate you saying that, mate. And we certainly tune into Backyard Bullion very frequently over here. You have a fairly large fan base in Australia. I don't know if you're aware of that, but there's a
I
lot of
I am, yeah.
a lot of our customer base actually watches you.
Yeah, it's nice to have a global audience. Very strange for me to sort of say that, but no, I've got a lot of customers who like the poured silver that we make. I send silver out to customers in Australia
Mm.
every year for our annual products and get inquiries from people for special things that I make all the year. So it is nice to have that. But I mean, you guys in Australia know what you're doing with gold and silver. You've been doing it very well for a very long time.
Yeah,
So it's
we
no
have some
surprise
great
that there's a
manufacturers over here, some incredible
yeah,
ones
you have.
actually.
Yeah,
So
I've got
yeah.
you out some Perth Mint stuff just to highlight how good they are.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just the Perth Mint. There's a lot of artisan um, uh, artists out here. I'm not sure what we actually call them,
Yeah.
that do a lot of stuff. And yeah, like you said, Perth Mint, second to none. They produce some really good stuff. How did you
Hey.
get How did you get involved with creating your own bullion? No, actually, go back further. How did you get involved with bullion in the first place?
Well, so I had a bunch of coins that I just inherited from my grandfather. I say inherited, he hadn't even died, he just gave them to me. World travel coins, non-precious metal stuff.
Yep.
And I always had a little coin box, like a little wooden box with just a big pile of coins, which were really fun. So I always liked coins. And then when I sort of got into my sort of young adult age, I started collecting the odd little bit and finding the odd little bit of old school sort of world silver. It wasn't really stacking, just deal on eBay and that kind of thing. And then one of my friends had a child, and I was made a godfather. And I thought, oh well, I'm not particularly religious, so I'll be more of a godfather that perhaps does something that is a hobby. Gets their godchild into a hobby. And coins I like and a hobby. So I researched buying stuff from somewhere like the Raw Mint, but I thought, that's just a little bit like not that special. And I went down the rabbit hole of YouTube and found people pouring their own silver. So I kind of did that. And from that as well, I'd got into investing in precious metal coins as well, just as a kind of background, bog standard, put them in a drawer, forget about them, and
Yeah.
didn't make any videos on them for the first year. It was only when I started pouring silver that I made some videos, and then the rest kind of evolved from there. So
Do you
that's
consider
my sort of
yourself
background.
Do you consider yourself a stacker, like a bullion stacker, or a
Mm.
coin collector, can't even say it now, it's getting late. Numismatist.
Numismatic. I'm a bit of both. I definitely have stacks of bullion that are basically there for investment purposes, as gold Britannias, things like that, just to have and to grow that wealth or protect that wealth at very least over time.
Mm.
And I also have a bunch of collectible numismatics. So I'm a big fan of, well, I used to be a big fan of stuff from the Raw Mint. That's maybe a bit of a sore topic for the time being, but a big fan of numismatic stuff, and I think it's a privileged place to be that I can have both. And I'm very lucky to be able to have both and have the kind of channel that I have where I have the the facility to show both and to enjoy both and to share
Yeah.
both. So very much sort of two sides of the coin for me, to coin a phrase.
Yeah.
Um, what about you guys? Like for viewers of my channel who perhaps haven't heard of Bullion Now, tell us a little bit about what you guys are, do, and everything that they might need to know.
Well, we're an Australian company. Bullion Now actually grew out of another company that we own called Little Coin Shop, which is actually more down the numismatic line. And after many years of people, they'd spend money on coins, on numismatics, and they'd say, "Oh yeah, but I really want to buy, a few ounces of gold, or kilos of silver, or this type of thing," which we didn't actually stock at that point. Well, not very much. We'd say, "Well, you're in Sydney, go and see these people," or you're in New York, or you're in London, or we'd refer people to different companies around the world depending on where they were.
Mhm.
And sometimes we'd find that they didn't always get the service that they expected, and obviously because we'd recommended that they'd gone to a certain place, it started to reflect onto us and our reputation. So several years ago, many years ago, I decided that we'd start up a bullion branch to Little Coin Shop, not quite realizing that it would grow far larger than the numismatics relatively quickly. And
When did you set up?
now it's probably 10 to 15 times the size that the numismatics was, and
Sure.
it just keeps growing. It's good fun.
Yeah. When did it start? The bullion side?
2018, the bullion side started.
Oh, yeah. You got in it before the world just went crazy for bullion. Like the markets have massively
Yeah,
grown since then.
but
COVID, I think, helped.
oh, look, absolutely. COVID, certainly in Australia and in Victoria, it certainly I was worried for the first 2 days of the COVID lockdown, and I don't know if you know much about Australia and particularly Victoria. We had the longest and most lockdowns of anywhere in the world,
Was it? Wow.
and the most restrictive. So for the first day or two, I was actually quite stressed because pretty much every other business was required to shut down.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we were fortunate in that I was going to say fought the system. We just stubbornly argued with with the authorities to stay
Yeah.
open.
Hmm.
And we stayed open all bar one day of the lockdowns over the years that we
Wow.
were locked down. And we only shut down that day because we happened to have a COVID case come through the store, and we had to get everyone tested. And of course, I didn't have
Yeah.
anyone to open the doors with. So I was pretty frustrated with that day. It was almost the last day of lockdown, and we got caught out.
Gosh.
But yeah, it's from about the second day onwards through COVID, it boomed. But I've been involved in gold and silver, particularly, but all five precious metals for many decades. And
Hmm.
I've seen these, like the growth that we saw while it went longer than normal. You see these mini booms and mini busts in precious metals,
Yeah.
if you go back over the years. So we were lucky when we started BN in 2018, but
Hmm.
we've certainly been through the cycles before, so it wasn't just a case of dumb luck on the day. At
Fair
least I
enough.
hope it wasn't.
I like your analogy there of the sort of boom and busts of it over time, because I will fully attest to that. That's my experience of being a gold and silver stacker over these last, what is it, 8, 9 years now. What do you reckon we're in right now, though? Are we in a boom or a bust?
That's a great question. I would say that we're actually we're slowing down. I don't know if I'd call it a bust yet, but it's
Hmm.
certainly slowing down. And a lot of the blame, I think, for that can fall back onto, and I'm sounding terrible here, but falling back on the tax law changes they had in Germany. That seemed to be the ripple
Okay.
effect that kicked off around the world this sudden pullback in buying. So even though we're seeing the price going up, and I think that's just gold catching up to where it should be, and silver to a degree, with all the unrest around the world. The turnover around the world has dropped, and I still think that the starting point for that, the initial kickoff, like I said before, was that tax change in Germany with silver, and everyone just recoiled from that point. onwards. I don't know what's it
Yeah.
like in the UK. Have you seen a similar thing or?
I mean, well, we talked briefly about this before we turn the record button on. The UK's quite sticky and a mess at the moment, isn't it? There's a lot going on from an economic point of view, political point of view, which we don't really talk too much about on our channel, but it just seems that the the need case for having some gold and silver in your portfolio is stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, so for your viewers that perhaps don't know too much about what we do, we also do our poured silver business, but we also act as an intermediary seller for stackers, connecting stackers and sellers with prospective buyers. And that market is just ridiculous. I'll get gold and silver in and I'll list it for sale at competitive prices, that will be cheaper for buyers under dealers. And it goes within hours, minutes sometimes. Sometimes I start uploading things to my website. I haven't even sent my newsletter out, and somebody's kept an eye on my website and they've placed an order before I finished uploading all of the products.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I think that's changed quite a lot in the last 3 years since we've left the European Union trade agreement. Brexit sort of happened, but there was an extended period where we could still trade with Europe. But now that's all gone. People just have no choice but to buy from the UK, and that market has grown, and people want it because of the uncertainty in the world, and sadly the UK as well. So I've definitely noticed where I think we're in an interesting one. We're in a boom, but I think we're at the peak. I think it's like in terms of like the market demand and premium, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Whether it continues peaking, I don't know, but I think we're at the top of a boom, perhaps with a bust coming in the UK. But
Are you
we'll have to
seeing
see.
more? Are you seeing more gold sales or silver sales, or it's much of a
Yeah,
muchness?
it's an interesting one. I think so. I'm seeing more people selling gold right now through like my intermediary service because gold is at an all-time high.
Yep.
Silver isn't quite as high as it was. Like at some point, I think it was around 24, 25 pounds an ounce. Now it's around 22. So people who don't have to sell their silver don't want to sell their silver
Mm.
because they can wait and get a better price. So right now there's more gold, I think, trading hands than silver. But if silver comes up at the right price, it's snapped up just as fast as gold.
Yeah, it's interesting in Australia where we're probably seeing more individual sales of silver, but we're seeing
Mhm.
larger buying of gold, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that would um, normally buy larger amounts of silver, they will reduce the amount of silver they're buying. They might. It was interesting. We had a release of the Comsco Tiger
Mhm.
yesterday, our time. And I was watching the website sales. And normally you see people buying, 20 of this, 40 of this, 100 of these
Sure.
type of things. We're now seeing people buying 1 or 5 or 10.
Got
So
you.
we're still seeing the same number of sales. The sales are just smaller in
Yeah.
silver, whereas gold, we're getting people coming in and instead of buying a half ounce or a 1 ounce, they'll buy 10 ounces or 20 ounces or 50 ounces at a time.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, it's those people like when we panic as humans, we don't tend to run to silver or platinum or palladium or any of those things. When we panic, we run to gold. And
Yeah.
while we're not panicking, there's certainly an undertone there
Yeah.
where people are just getting that little bit nervous and they're going, I like silver, but I want a bit of security and I'm going to take a chunk of gold.
Yeah. The thing with gold here in the UK is that it doesn't attract VAT sales tax. So
Mm.
silver does, which means that when you buy it, say from a dealer, you're paying at least 25 to 35% over the intrinsic value
Wow.
when the VAT is added on top. So when you think of it like that, if somebody buys a bunch of silver Britannias from a dealer and they're paying 33, 34 pounds an ounce for them, and they turn around and go to that dealer next week and go, do you know, actually, I really need the money. And they get offered 22 pounds an ounce, which is spot price. Maybe a little bit more. Some dealers pay a touch more on their Britannias now, but it's still a huge swing. Whereas gold, you buy gold at the moment from a dealer for 1.5% over spot.
Yep.
And then if tomorrow you need to sell that gold, they'll pay you maybe 1% under spot. So it's a 2.5% swing, which is not a lot at all.
You guys, your buybacks are below spot on gold, are
It depends who you go to and where you go to. But yes, generally speaking, most dealers will give you around 99 on say a Britannia. If it's something that's a bit weird and odd, like a Krugerrand, they might go back to 97,
Wow. Yeah.
which is where my bias, I call it the Backyard Bullion Bias Club. That's where that was born, because I feel there's always an intrinsic value of gold for people, and it shouldn't be that the dealers give you 97% and then they sell it for 103% and make a 6% margin. So instead, we offer that linking, cutting the dealers out. No offense to any dealers present in the room, of course, Michael, but we just try our best here and there, not like en masse, but where we can to help stackers connect, and it gives them an extra maybe £40 on an ounce of gold in their pocket, and they its demand is there because people use it, so it's a good one. But yeah,
we've always felt that, because in Australia a similar thing happens. Most dealers offer that 96, 97. Sometimes you can get them to 98%. And we've always offered spot, because
yeah,
to me that's its intrinsic value. Like,
exactly.
why would I expect you to sell it for less than spot? That's,
Yeah,
it's purified. It's, you don't have to refine it anymore, or,
yeah.
it's already been cast into a bar or a coin. The hard work's been done. Why is it worth less than spot? And I've
I
never.
completely agree with you, and it's one of these things that I have always felt very strongly about. And unfortunately, there are dealers all around the world, not just in the UK, that will put themselves high up on Google rankings, and they'll be the first that someone sees. So when they Google "sell my gold," they are, well, look, okay, they're the biggest. They've got these banners going #1 UK bullion dealer and everything, but they only pay 96%, and they do it because they can, and people just do it and they go to them. But then if you find someone like yourselves who's just doing the right thing and paying better and being more competitive, then surely that's the logical thing. But we can't begrudge people from making a living in a sort of free and fair market. But I think there is, like you say, there's a moral responsibility. If someone comes through your door and you've got an ounce of gold, you don't say, "I'm going to give you 50% of spot price for it," as some pawn shops would do. So
Yeah, no, we had a case of that not that long ago, where they came in and they'd sold, 60, 70% of their gold at not much more than 50%. And I was heartbroken for them. Like, that was
yeah,
just, that's just
it's
like
borderline criminal sometimes, I
well,
think.
it
But
is. I mean, those people will never ever look at precious metals as a viable investment again.
no,
So we've lost them out of the community. And I can guarantee you they're telling everyone, don't buy gold, don't buy silver. It's not worth it, because, you get ripped at the other end.
yeah.
Hopefully we convince them otherwise. But yeah, like I said, it really broke my heart, that one.
Yeah. I don't know if you have a similar range of companies that do similar things, but on the opposite end of the scale. So there are a lot of third party creators, not creators is the wrong word, private mints that will make. The sovereigns are not trademarked, by the way, if you didn't know. So you can just have anyone can make a coin and call it a sovereign. So they make these third party sovereigns, and they charge £1,200 for a sovereign, which is 3 or 4 times over the intrinsic value. And they
Yeah,
target old people and pensioners and people who don't know better. And then these people think they've got all these wonderful coins. They go to a dealer and they get offered spot and they cry.
yeah,
Or, I've had people approach me and go, "Can you help? Can I sell it with you for X price?" And I just have to heartbreak them by saying, "No, I'm afraid that's just you've been legally scammed," as I say, because unfortunately that is the thing.
yeah,
So yeah, it is. I think integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness is so important in this game. Like,
yeah,
you lose it, you'll never get it back. Which is really, really important to me, and it sounds it to you guys as well. So it's quite
yeah.
refreshing to hear.
No, I totally agree. There's been too many years of the industry not playing ball properly,
Yeah,
and it's good to see. Like, it's not just us. There are several dealers around Australia and around the world now that are playing ball, and they're playing ball properly. They're looking
yeah,
after their customers, which,
yeah,
that was one of the reasons we started, was to try and educate and bring some of that back into the industry. And
yeah.
it's great to see that there, in Australia anyway. And the
Fantastic.
limited dealings I've had with the UK, it seems to be the same over there.
So I also want to just get the message out that I'm not anti-dealer. I think dealers have a really important place in this. And I'll tell you exactly for why. If you watch a video that I will be actually sitting down to film the first part of, after we finish here, publish it at some point in the next week. Some of the coins you see on this table are actually going to a dealer
Mm.
tomorrow. I'm liquidating them and I'm swapping them out for sovereigns. And
Oh, okay.
that is almost impossible to fathom doing privately because you'll have to try and sell a bunch of big 1 ounce gold coins. And the reason I'm doing it is because they're so clunky right now. You know, I spent 1,354 on this coin. It's worth 1,900 odd pounds now, and a bit
Mm.
extra with spot. And that's hard to sell, but sovereigns are just so liquid. And the only way I could foresee doing that was actually with a dealer, and this dealer Atkinson's, who are the, in my opinion, leaders in the UK. You know, we've just talked with them, worked them out. They have looked after me incredibly well. I've been a good customer of theirs, and they are doing the swap, and it's working out very nicely. You know, it's not doing it for free. I'm paying a small percentage on this trade, but it's all perfect and great. And I could not be more happy with the service I'm getting from them. And that's a service that you pay for in life. If you've got anything that you want to do, you pay for a service, don't you?
Well,
And that's
that's it.
where I think dealers are best suited.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think everyone recognizes that, you're a business, and you've got to make a small amount of money, to
Yeah,
employ people and pay your taxes and cover costs and all that sort of stuff, and walk away with a small profit at the end of the day. And I don't think anyone really begrudges that,
no,
of a dealer or anyone else in business. It's when it goes to an extreme that people aren't very
yeah,
appreciative of it, or they
yeah,
don't get the service that they deem necessary.
mhm,
Um,
definitely.
and yeah,
So,
that's
oh, sort of changing tact a little bit on the direction. As you're a dealer and you deal with plenty of different mints, I've seen you doing some of your incredible unboxings. I'm very envious because I used to do massive unboxings from third-party bullion dealers back in the day, but I don't do as many anymore.
yeah.
Um, you do a lot from, say, our favorite mutual company, the Royal Mint. Um, how's it going with them? Because as I said at the beginning of the video, I got back onto your channel and listening to what you guys have to say on the world of precious metals from your Berlin World Money Fair video, talking about the problems that you'd faced when trying to talk with the Royal Mint. How's your relationship with them going at the moment? Because mine's a bit in the doldrums. It'd be
Yeah,
great to
look,
see what you've got to say.
I'm going to tread very carefully here.
Sure.
Look, we're not.
It's not a gotcha question.
Uh,
I'm
I
more interested just how you're doing.
look. I have no problem with the Royal Mint
Hmm.
in and of itself. I have a
Sure.
problem with the quality of the product they're producing.
Yeah.
It has, for whatever reason, and I'm not like I don't know the intricate details of their processes or anything along those sort of lines. But we are absolutely struggling, and you can see on our videos that we call it the way it is. Um,
Hmm.
when we open a tube and it's not up to speed, we kind of say it's not up to speed. And
Yeah.
we've mentioned on several occasions that we have reduced the amount of Royal Mint product that we bring in. We still bring
Hmm.
in some because we still have a lot of faithful people in Australia that want to buy Royal Mint products, and you're highlighting one of their latest releases
Yeah.
there now. Um, so we almost feel we have an obligation to bring in a certain amount because people have started on a series, the Tudor Beast series that you're holding now, and
Yeah.
it's not kind of fair to cut that off at the knees and say, "Oh, we're not bringing them in anymore. We're
Hmm.
done."
Hmm.
But we are certainly limiting it. And I have to say, you did touch on that Berlin video. I was pretty disappointed with the response that we got from the
Hmm.
Royal Mint. They weren't particularly forthcoming with look, we know it's an issue or anything along those sort of lines. So, I wouldn't say we have a wonderful um, love of where we're at the moment, but their designs are still fantastic. Their gold
Yeah.
products, we don't have an issue with at all.
Hmm.
In fact, a lot of their cased bullion, we don't, or cased coins, we don't have an issue with. Although the last ones, I'm just checking with Ruben here. Were the last ones in a capsule or not? The 10 ounce were, but the 1 ounce weren't. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry, 2 ounce, weren't they? We don't seem to have a lot of trouble with the encapsulated stuff,
Yeah.
but the stuff that we call the naked stuff, the stuff that's just coming in tubes, we're still struggling with.
Yeah. I have been to the production line of the Royal Mint. So it was about 2 years ago now. They had some Mint era Britannias where they had wonky dies, and the die on the Queen side was 90 degrees out of whack. And
Yep.
we found one, and we went in there and tried to do a positive spin on it, because these things are really interesting. How does it happen? Like, that kind of thing. It's not there to bash the quality of the Royal Mint. So we went in to have a look, and they gave me a full behind the scenes tour of their production line, and I was quite shocked, because if I can best describe this, it's basically a large automated machine press. So it throws in the blanks at like, I think it's like 2 a second. So every half second a coin is struck, and then it rolls it down a little chute, and it comes and it bounces onto a conveyor belt. And half the time they come out on the edge and they're rolling on this. It's quite fun to watch, but they're rolling. But the problem is that they bounce on top of some of them, others. Now, I will caveat this by saying this was 2 years ago, so I don't know whether they're still using that same thing. But I said right there and then, I was like, but there's coins bouncing on other coins. Aren't they going to damage each other? Because it's 909 fine silver. And they were like, well, that's just how we do it. And then those coins would finally settle, and they'd roll down, and they'd go down another conveyor belt and be picked up by a robotic arm and put into the tubes and sealed and gone. And there is no quality check on the bullion coins, on those Britannias. So I was quite shocked about it. Now, they didn't make me sign any NDAs or ask me not to talk about it. It's just, that's how it was for them. On the other side, like the proof coins, there is a lot more quality control, and there are, manual checks on things. That's better. But that did shock me. So I can kind of maybe see where that, like you're saying, like the capsulated coins is better, but maybe that's the root cause. I don't know. But like maybe it's out of date, because that's 2 years old when I went there. But that was my experience.
Did you see
but
a
I think
video? Did you see a video on the Perth Mint?
there was one recently, wasn't there, where they
Yes.
were showing the manufacturing of the coins? Yeah, I found that fascinating.
Well, it was, by the sounds of it, it's a complete opposite of your experience. They every coin take out the kangaroo, because that's slightly different production. I'm quite happy to talk about that as well. But every other coin was like meticulously produced and cared for and inspected, and like it was. I was amazed at their quality control that they had over there through the whole process. Whether it was a proof coin or a bullion coin, it didn't matter. Like, to the manufacturing of the dies, the blanks, the whole lot was just quality control the whole way along. And it was brilliant to see. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. No, I would wholeheartedly recommend anyone to go watch that. I don't think this camera's doing this one quite as much justice. It's the gold gilded version of the anniversary. I love it. The Perth Mint is just sublime with quality. It always has been, right from the beginning. In fact, I've got out here on my desk something that I got a very long time ago. One of the very first coins I ever picked up before I even started YouTube, because we just looked at it and loved it. But even back then, when was that? It was like 2012 coin. I mean, I bought it in 2015, 16. But the point is that it's just so good. Even back then, the quality was incredible. And the whole industry's changed so much since then. Technology's come on so much since then. But they've always been sublime. They've always been really good. And it from a sort of national pride standpoint, I do feel, unfortunately, the Royal Mints, whilst you don't necessarily want to, or rightly so, need to discuss about their sort of direction of what they do and how they do it. But for me, it's somewhat of a bit of a national embarrassment to have the Mint not care as much about their quality as other mints. And it's the milk spotting question too, which is always, they have mentioned it on a live stream they did. I saw they mentioned that they know that there's a problem and maybe they'll look into it. But it's been going on for a long time, and they just have almost sort of ostrich head in the sand, about it. So maybe one day they'll sort it. But yeah, it's an odd one. I love the Royal Mint, and like you say, their designs are sublime, and they are. And for me right now, I'm just not in a position where I can enjoy them as much as I once did, because of some of the quality and other issues that I've experienced with them. But maybe that will change one day. We'll see.
Look, I firmly believe it will, because the market will force them to change, if nothing else. But I think they will. I think their heart's in the right place. They're just not doing it properly yet. But the Canadian Mint, the Royal Canadian Mint, they had issues with milk spotting for years. The standard joke in the industry was, how do how do you tell a real maple? It's got milk spots on it,
Yeah.
like
And
it
that
was
joke's
just,
now for the Britannia.
yeah, yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, you're right. But, now it's pretty rare that you actually see a milk spotted
Yeah.
maple because they've come along in leaps and bounds. They've developed the
They look really
technology.
good.
They've moved forward and they produce a fantastic product.
Don't you think the modern maples just look so lovely?
Yeah,
They've
they
got this
do.
like look and shine and beauty to them that is so much nicer than any other historical maple. So yeah,
Yeah.
they've
I,
solved
s-
it.
I still think, and I'd never admit this with Matt in the room because he's a big Royal Canadian Mint fan, but
Mm.
and he doesn't stop banging on about him. But I still say the two government mints in the world that are the world leaders are the Royal Canadian Mint and the Perth Mint.
Hmm.
And it week to week about which one's actually the best because they both produce incredible designs,
Yeah,
incredible quality, incredible presentation, and they do it at like they don't price gouge the market. I don't feel
no,
anyway that they really
yeah,
they don't price gouge that market. They're out there to provide a good product at a good
yeah,
price, and I think they achieve
yeah.
it in almost all cases.
I would definitely agree with you. I mean, I don't want to harp on about the raw mint too much, but they have increased their prices quite a lot lately. But other mints have as well. The US Mint recently
Mm,
came out and increased all of their prices for proof coins, and there's a lot of kickback on that from a lot of their customers. Um, and you see the likes of Perth Mint being able to produce proof 1 ounce silver coins at, 2/3 the price of these other big mints. And you've got to ask yourself, as somebody who's interested in collecting cool coins like that, do I pay more for just the brand of the raw mint, or do I have something that's really exciting from the Perth Mint instead? And that's where I've lent in the last sort of 5, 6 months, as
mm,
opposed to somewhere like the raw mint. So it's cyclical. Maybe that'll turn around one day, but I completely agree with you.
mm.
It's a weird one.
Dragging you back to a previous comment you made, you may be
Go
incredibly
for it.
jealous
Mm.
over the sovereigns because they are an
Ah.
issue for us in Australia.
Oh,
Um,
really?
they're one of my favorite coins. I love the sovereign. I love the picture behind the sovereign, because they've been
Yeah.
used in so many different things. We had a customer in a long while ago now where he brought in his grandfather's sovereign that had been sewn into his bomber jacket during World War II.
Yeah.
Um, like we obviously
Amazing.
have a fairly rich history with the sovereign because of the gold rush and all of that
Yeah.
that
Here you
type of
go.
stuff and produced here.
I have one
Yeah,
out.
beautiful
It's
things
so
like that.
nice.
In Australia, they incur GST, our version of VAT.
Ah, okay.
Um,
I think this is
whereas
actually a Perth Mint one as well. It's
yeah,
got a P there.
it is too.
I didn't
Um,
realize that. There we go.
but you don't pay any taxes on those at all, do you?
No, they are sales tax free because they're gold, and that's how we get it here in the UK. And they're capital gains tax exempt as well, which means that we don't have to pay taxes if we make a profit on them either. I don't
Yeah,
know whether that's
explain that. That's a foreign concept to us. We
you don't
like
have that at all.
no, pretty much. I
So,
can't off the top of my head. I can't think of anything that's capital gains tax free. But yeah. Oh no,
oh, so
purchases
you still
under.
have capital gains taxes then? If
Yeah,
you
very much
yes,
so.
but these are exempt. So I think the premise in sort of history and law is that a a coin of the realm can't be taxed
Mm,
on its handling in society. That was the general idea. Where that falls with silver being currently taxed is a question for another topic and somebody with far more knowledge than me. But gold, it was the capital gains tax exemption status was there for gold coins, and that includes past currency. So of course, the sovereign is no longer legal tender currency, but it does hold a value of £1, so therefore is exempt from capital gains tax.
hang on. So
So,
you said it's not legal tender in the UK?
well, I actually don't know enough about it to definitively say, but I think theoretically you can pay off a court debt with it as a face value coin of £1, but you wouldn't because, of course, the sovereign is worth £450 in gold value, but it's got a face value of £1. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't. It's not sort of legal tender in that sense, but I think it is legal tender in a legal standpoint sense, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Similar
Um,
here. So it's
yeah,
legal. Like the only coins that have ever been delegalized in Australia, or whatever the term properly is, so they're no longer legal tender, is our holy dollar and dump. Everything else, including the sovereign, is still considered legal tender in this country.
Okay.
But yeah, you wouldn't roll up to your local
No.
milk bar or supermarket and try and pay for your groceries with a gold sovereign, because the checkout chick
You could
would look at
try.
you very funny.
Yeah, it'd probably make quite a good video for YouTube, but yeah, not going to get
Yeah.
very far.
No, that's right.
So yeah, from our perspective. So for example, if if one day I sell this coin for a massive profit, and there are exemption limits, so like you don't pay tax on the first £3,000 worth of your gains, for example, but
Wow.
that might change in this crazy UK economy that we're in, and who knows where that will be. But for example, if I made a profit on it, I'd have to pay about 28% of the profit in tax, whereas sovereigns, it's literally zero. You could have £1 million worth of sovereigns, sell them for £5 million in 20 years' time, and you wouldn't have to pay a single penny of tax. It wouldn't count for income tax. It wouldn't count for capital gains tax. It's just a very good investment vehicle. And the same is for Britannia's. But a lot of people get confused. They think any raw mint product is exempt, but it's only coins. The raw mint bullion bar is not exempt, and you'd have to pay your capital gains taxes on that.
So even your Tudor Beast there, are you telling me that's
Yeah.
capital gains tax free, is it?
Yeah. Now the actual ironic thing is that because proof coin market is very difficult right now, and most proof coins that you buy from the raw mint, you're probably going to lose money on in the short term. Maybe one day you'll get some profit on them, but because they're capital gains exempt, if you make a loss on them, you can't actually put that loss on your record against things. So like, if you buy some Perth Mint coins and I lose money on them, then I can put that loss against sales and profits of other things I sell, but not for raw mint proofs. So yeah, it's any raw mint coin. Anything else is fair game for capital gains, unfortunately. So it's a very big consideration for the UK. And sort of going back to the reason why I'm swapping out these for sovereigns, that's more of a liquidity size of each coin question. But the important thing is, if you've got a bunch of non-capital gains gold right now, you might want to think about selling it and putting it into capital gains exempt gold, because one day it could be £4,000 an ounce and you're facing even more gains. So if you sell it and swap it now, then you're going to hedge and not have as much tax to pay in the future. That's something that I know a lot of people are trying to do right now in the UK. So here's a question for you. What's your favorite coin? If you could just have one coin and sit there and look at it and enjoy it.
I hate this question because I can never give a straight answer, because I have so many different coins that I like for different reasons. Like the sovereign, I love the sovereign, but it's more the story behind the sovereign, or the stories behind the sovereign. I love our 1966 50-cent piece because it's an oddity. It's the same with our 1937 and 1938 crown that was only produced for 2 years and in very limited numbers in 1938. So I guess I like the oddities. It doesn't matter if a coin's ugly. If it's got a story behind it, I love it. Or if I can create a story behind it, I love it. So I can never actually say, this is my go-to coin, or bar for that matter. I love the moldy old bars, the terrible ones. And I really love, the Perth. I don't know if you've seen the Perth Mint Gold Dragon minted bar this year.
Oh, yeah, they are lovely.
They did a stunning job with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I never bought a gold one for myself to keep. I had a few that landed through third parties that I drop shipped for people.
Yep.
They're just stunning. They are great. I love them.
Yeah, that's
so unique and as well. Great idea, like coin bar. Like, bars are just so quintessential. It's just whoever came up with that idea needs to have a big pat on the back from the Perth Mint, I think. You've kind of stolen my answer if we're going to flip that around to me. I'm like you. I have different tastes of different things at different times, and different coins like just sing to me, and for different reasons. I think the sovereign, though, kind of is the go-to thing, but there are so many different varieties of sovereigns. So even then, just saying the sovereign, you can't have one singular thing.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've always loved this. I mean, obviously I work as a bullion dealer now, but even before that, even as a kid and into my teens, I always loved it because of the variety, and you could always find something that grabbed you. And it wouldn't be the same thing each time. You'd open your collection and go, actually, I really like this one. And then the next time you open your collection, you go, oh, actually, I think it's this one.
Yeah.
And it just
jumps
out.
The same. In fact, I think I've got it right here. Next to me, yes, I do. But I think it's the same for like how I got started in coins. Like, you just have, this is my old box that I got from my grandfather, and like just world coins.
Yeah.
just like, you know, little pieces of metal that have a story. You know, this is a penny from what's 1874. You think, what has that seen? What journey
Mm.
has that taken across its lifespan to get
Yes.
to us here today? You know,
Yeah.
and that's more special. That's more precious, in my opinion, than any piece of precious metal can be. And that's a box of junk, you know, that I'm talking about. One man's treasure is another man's. What? No, what's the phrase? One man's junk is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
And and that's what I love about coins. They just have this connection to the past and history.
Yeah.
So
And
it's a
it's
very
also
good
the
one.
people behind it. We had some bars sold back. This is going back a number of years now, but we had gold bars sold back in, and it was this beautiful little old lady. She would have been well into her 90s that sold them back to us. And the whole
Mm.
story behind how she, became hold of how she got hold of these is, a young married couple, they'd bought shares in. I don't know if you guys had a similar thing over there, but we had a big boom in mining shares back in the late 60s. Um, and
I
as
think
you
a
do
bit
with
before
every
my
boom,
time.
it ends up in a bust.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, they'd lost money in it. So, and they were a very newly married couple at that point. So they decided that they'd always put their money into gold because then they held it in
Yeah.
their hands. And her husband had passed away, and this is many years later. She came into our store and she was selling me these 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 5 ounce gold bars, and she still had the receipts from the 1960s, and they were
Wow.
beautiful old. I mean, they were, I'll call them mass produced because they were mass produced for their era, but they were hand poured and they had all the
Hmm.
ripples and the tonings through them, and they were just. It made me cry having to sell these bars,
Oh,
and I did have to sell them, but it was beautiful, and the
yeah.
story behind it, and this beautiful little old lady that came in with them. It was just, I love that as part of the
Yeah.
the, the richness of our hobby. It's just brilliant.
Well, it's part of the human connection, isn't it? Gold has been with
Mm.
us for tens of thousands of years in one
Yeah.
form or another. And that I think is something that connects humans through history.
Mm.
And it's a weird concept if you really kind of analyze it. You know, it's just a lump of metal, but it is so permanent and it is so real and it's so
Yeah.
shiny. That's the thing. Like, I think the only reason that my channel's ever got to where it is because I show shiny things on it and people just like looking at shiny things. That was my
Yeah.
that was my catchphrase for a long while right at the start. You know, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy who talks about shiny things on YouTube. You know, and I think that's a really important thing for the human connection, just to
Yeah.
enjoy what you do and enjoy what you have.
I agree.
So,
How did you come up with the name? Or how did you start getting called Backyard Bullion? What's the story behind that?
well, my original channel name was Silver Archery GB because I was pouring some silver. I also have a longbow and I like shooting it, and so I had some videos of me shooting my longbow, and I just put some videos up on YouTube. And my wife went, "That's a crap name," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is. You're not wrong at all." And she was like, "I mean, you're not going to make that many archery videos, are you?" Because I was now doing all the silver stuff. And she was like, "Well, you need something better, and you're doing it in the back garden. So why not?" I said, "Oh, what about back garden bullion or something?" And she went, "Well, a lot of people are in America. They don't know what a back garden is. They might think that's something very different." So I went, "All right. Or what do you suggest?" She went, "We'll call it backyard." And then it just that little moment in both of our minds went, "Yeah, that sounds all right." So I changed it, and that's where it stuck. So backyard bullion.
There you
Because
go.
of course in the UK we don't call them backyards; it's just our garden. So um, it is a bit of a weird one, but that's how it stuck, and that's where we are.
Well, you've
Um,
certainly become world renowned by it.
well, yeah, it's a weird one. Social media. I never planned for this to happen. Like I suppose I did in a way, but I didn't plan one day just to become a YouTuber. It kind of grew beyond what I expected ever. I just thought, I'd do some videos and that was it. Inspired by
Mm.
some other people, and then it just came to a point where, and I was in a point in my life as well where I wasn't working for someone else. I was working for myself as a self-employed person,
Yep.
and I had extra time as I was building a client base for what I was doing. And this then filled that extra time, and it got to a point where my wife said, "You're doing probably more of this than you are your other work. Is there something you're trying to tell me? Do you want to do this more?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I do." And then she made me do a business plan, proper Dragon's Den style, because she was like, "Well, she said, if you're going to do this, you're not going to borrow money to do it," because she felt that was going to be too much of a risk. I could have borrowed £100,000, set up a bullion business, and then it could have gone tits up. That's not fun. So she was
Mm.
like, "I'm going to be your dragon investor. So you're going to pitch to me for £5,000 of our savings, put together a business plan, and I did that. And for the first like 2 years, I basically didn't earn any money because I was just rolling over everything that we sold, all the profits into the new thing. So the 5,000 turns into 10,000, and 10,000 turns into 20, and so on. And now we have a fully fledged, debt free artisan business with, it doesn't earn me millions of pounds. I don't ever want it to do that. It keeps me very busy, very happy. It's very fulfilling. And that's very important to us. And I can never now envisage going back and working for someone else or doing. I used to work in corporate HR, and it was dire, and I would never do that again. Different life, different world. So
So
yeah,
this is your
very
full-time
strange.
gig.
This is my full-time gig now from around. So I did the business plan for her in 2017, and I had a few bits on the back burner from my old work from then. But then from around 2018 onwards, that was when it was self-sustaining in terms of, this is now our livelihood. So
Yeah.
our livelihood, my livelihood. She still works. She does her thing. So she's the safety net. I'm very lucky.
Don't you
Behind
love
every
the
great
honesty?
YouTuber is a good YouTuber's wife.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And don't you love the honesty of spouses, eh?
Oh, honestly, that name's crap. You need to change it. Sure. Okay.
That's right.
She's my biggest critic and my biggest fan, except she hardly watches my videos anymore. So that's great.
Yeah, it always makes me smile when one of the kids or my wife says, "Oh, I actually caught your live stream the other day." I
Yeah.
think, yeah, yeah. You don't
She's
watch it the
just kind
rest
of,
of the time.
no, she just kind of lets me do my thing now. She's like, how's it going? It's like, yeah, no, it's all right. Yeah, we've doing all right. A video blew up the other day. She was like, all right, great, well done. It's a huge thing when something happens like that. But anyway,
You
yeah,
gotta laugh. So, do you have a
fantastic.
favorite board piece that you've made?
Um, yes, I do. It's in another room.
Yeah,
If you can fill the slot for literally 30 seconds of dead air, I'll go grab it.
I reckon I can tap dance for 30 seconds. We can just cut it, can't we? He's gonna have
This is my favorite thing that I've ever made, and I kept it.
You're a
It's
big
just
golfer, or
no, it's just a giant cannonball of silver. Um, it's something I'd always wanted to make, and I had commissioned a 2-part graphite mold to make it, and it was meant to be a kilo, but it came out slightly less, so it's 30 ounces. But it's incredible, and I love it, and it's like my fidget piece on my desk. I just have it, you know, it's a luxury. It's my favorite piece.
so
It's
is it a
something so
one-off, or
satisfying.
did you make a few of them?
I've made, I think, 3 in total, and there's maybe, yeah, I think it's 3 all told. They all came out of 30 ounces. So I got my maths wrong when I sent the specs to the graphite mold maker, or he got it slightly wrong. But it's so difficult to predict like what a
Yeah.
solid sphere of silver would be, because there could be little air pockets inside it and stuff. But that's all hand poured, hand hammered. Took a hammer to it and just get that textured effect all around it, and then the laser hallmarking from the assay office, and it was made in the platinum jubilee year as well, so we had a special mark put on it, and I just yeah, love it. So
Yeah,
that's
you're registered. I don't really understand this part of it. You're registered with the
yeah,
Edinburgh Assay Office.
yes. So
Tell me about that. I don't even really
so
understand what that means.
no, it's fine. So in the UK, one of our other antiquated laws and systems of doing business is that if you are working with precious metals, selling jewelry, for example, you are required by law to hallmark them, which is basically a third party saying, yes, that is indeed gold or silver or what you say it is.
Yep.
Um, so that's been going back for a very long time, and it's the law. Now, for things like bullion bars, there are like questionable reasons that you don't have to do it. Like if it's just a bullion bar, tends to be that you don't have to. But if it's something that's unique, artisan, collectible, that kind of thing, then you really should be. But I do it because it's like an extra layer of guarantee that this is the full 999 fine silver. So
Mhm.
they take the pieces and they will test them. They will put them through XRFs. They'll do all of their other tests. They even will drill into some of your pieces, take samples of the silver, and do a mass spectrometer test on them, a fire assay test basically. And it costs money to do this. So you have to pay for the privilege of selling your stuff. But I actually don't view it as like an antiquated taxation system. I feel it's like an extra layer on top of the silver, which makes my stuff a bit more unique in a very crowded market now. Lots of people pouring silver, and there's a lot of talented people out there.
Mm.
But we hallmark everything that we do, and I think that's nice for people to have that extra layer of guarantee, so they know without a shadow of doubt that I'm saying what I'm pouring is 999 fine silver. So that's what we've been doing all the way back from the beginning. I did that right at the start. I think that's really important for me.
How often
And
do they test your product? Like, do you have to send them so many samples a year?
every
Or?
no, every single piece.
Oh,
So
seriously?
literally every single piece. I've got my last little batch of 1 ounce bars that we've just sold. These are bits that I've got to package up and send out to customers. But every single little 1 ounce bar has to have the marks on every single piece that we do. And so you send it in. They don't drill test every single one, but what they'll do is put every single one through their their XRF machines and other precious metal testing equipment that they've got. And then they take a small sample out of every batch and they'll drill it. They do repair the drill holes, which is very good. Like you can't even see where they drill tested this at some point, but I have literally no idea where. Can't see the little mark that they've repaired. So they're very good at what they do, and the guarantee is worth paying for.
So it's
So
literally every single bar, or just one out of each batch that they that you submit to them?
they physically examine every single bar. They don't drill every single bar, but they will physically examine every single one because they offer this guarantee whereby if there's something with a hallmark on it and it's later found out to not be 999 fine silver or gold or whatever it is, their whole but again, back to this reputation trustworthiness thing. You question their whole reason for existence if they let one slip through. So that's why they're very hot on it, and it adds that protection for the consumer. So originally it was all about jewelry. So if you buy a random ring from somebody and it just says 925 silver on it, that's not a guarantee. That's just somebody making up some numbers, putting on a ring. But if you buy it with a hallmark, without a shadow of a doubt that it's real. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it's
Far as I'm
some
aware,
people feel it's sorry.
no, I was just going to say, as far as I'm aware, we don't have anything like that in Australia. I'm probably one of the commenters will tell me otherwise, but I'm not aware of us having to do that at all.
Yeah, it's an antiquated way of looking at things that certainly it's like questionable whether you have to do it on things like these 1 ounce bullion bars, but I do it as an extra layer to set my products aside from other people who don't. So it's that extra layer of guarantee. And I think they look cool as well. And it gets, we put in every package a little info sheet. Oh, all about, we've got them all over here. A little info sheet in every single package, which has all of the information about what marks mean, where they come from, the history of them as well, and things like that. So, I think it's an extra thing that people quite like. And I've always been told by my customers that they really enjoy seeing those hallmarks and enjoying the history of that. They go back hundreds of years, these hallmarks, and it's like you've got your brand in this period of history that will always be logged. In 500 years' time, there's going to be a record that Backyard Bullion made pieces and had these hallmarks. And if somebody in 500 years' time finds a 1 ounce bar somewhere, they'll be able to know that was made by Backyard Bullion. And it's the same for things like spoons and rings and things you find here in the UK now that you can trace back to like the 1700s, and you know exactly who made them, what company, what person, what artisan. And that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things, I married a Pommy girl, and we go back to the UK. I was going to say semi-frequently. That's probably exaggerating, but coming from a country that we don't have the depth of things like that go back hundreds and hundreds of years, and I always find that fascinating when I go over to Europe, but particularly into the UK. We stay at my wife's family's one of the cousins' place over there near Sheffield, and just wandering around the village and seeing some of these grave sites that are hundreds of years old, and these churches that are literally hundreds, like they were around like 200 years before or 300 years before, Captain Cook ventured over to Australia. It's mind blowing. And I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
So
I'm a
yeah,
huge,
this is an
huge history
extension of
buff.
that.
Yeah, I'm a huge history buff. I did, history at university, ancient history. Absolutely love this stuff. And, the rich, deep history that brings the UK into what it is today is made up of
Mm.
so many different things,
Yeah.
modern and old, and it is amazing. Um,
Do you
and
have any
yeah,
ancient coins? Being an ancient history buff, do you
no,
keep ancient
actually,
coins?
no. It's funny, I don't. I just never really got into it as much. I suppose, the oldest coins I've got are around the 1800s, or I think a 1790 guinea or something I've got somewhere. Um, but no, ancient coins have just always been a bit of a. I think I'm a bit afraid of them in terms of like fakes and being
Yeah.
scammed, not knowing the true value of a particular thing. Um, but they've never really interested me as much, I think, as some of the modern ones.
Mm.
So it is interesting you say that, actually, now I come to think of it, because I'm a huge Roman history buff, and it would be kind of cool to have some old school Roman gold and silver.
Yeah.
I always remember like the beautiful archaeological finds that you see and read about, where they've literally found a clay pot with 100 gold Roman coins in that
Mm.
can date specific. It's amazing how they can accurately do this, but they can date it specifically to the withdrawal of the Romans from Britain. And these people just went, yeah, okay, the world's going a bit crazy. I'm going to bury my gold in my backyard because I don't know what's going to happen. And then 2,000 years later, it's dug up by some archaeology student at university, and it's that I think is incredible. But yeah,
Yeah. The original backyard bullion, you reckon?
well, could well be. Well, I mean, that's basically what they were doing. They were pouring their own coins and hand stamping, striking them. That's ultimately, it's that technology to pour gold and silver has evolved since then. But we've been doing it for 10,000 years.
Mm.
Um, And I like telling the story to people about, say, platinum, for example, because in Peruvian culture, Peruvian archaeology, you find often waste pits full of platinum slag, because they would take the ore out of the ground, they'd get the gold out of it because they wanted the gold, but they just didn't have the technology to get it hot enough to use the platinum. And there are
Mm.
literally just big holes full of platinum slag just cast aside because they thought it was a bit of a nuisance problem, which I think is hilarious. So,
Yeah. Which
but
metal do you prefer working with, gold or silver?
I only work with silver, actually. I don't pour
Okay.
gold. And the main reason for that is going back to the assaying, the hallmarking side of things, um, because they test everything. And of course, if you're having to guarantee a 999 purity, a
Mm.
small contamination, cross contamination will, cause things to fail, which is not great. And I did do a gold bar once. I've got videos up on my channel of doing it. And because I am not as experienced as I am now, I just used the same furnace. And there was some cross contamination in the gold bar that I made. So
Yeah.
whilst it was still like 99.8% gold, it failed the assay. And the
Mm.
person who'd commissioned it was absolutely fine with it. He understood the whole premise of it, and he was still happy to go ahead and buy it, albeit at a slightly different price than we'd originally agreed, and that's fine by me. It's just an experiment. But then I didn't want to go and do more gold and risk, because if you're pouring a gold bar that's the same size as this, gold being more dense, it's going to be a 1.8 ounce gold bar in the same
Mm.
size. That's like £4,000 worth of gold, and it's like that's a lot of money to try and then have something fail an assay. So I've just
Yeah.
steered clear of it. There are people who do it that are better than me at it, and I'm fine with what I'm good at, and that is pouring silver. So
Yeah. No, that's fair
yeah.
enough.
But only 999 silver as well. A lot of people think they can just melt down old bits of jewelry and stuff, but it comes out all black and tarnished and grotty and
Yep.
dirty and horrible. And there's so much extra work. Whereas poured 999 silver just comes out looking like this, more or less. You might have a little bit of graphite on it if you've used graphite crucible, but generally it comes out pretty clean and lovely. And then you just do your stamping, polish it up, and off you go. So
How many pieces would you make in a week, a month, a year?
we do annual product runs at the moment, rather than me making stuff just to sell, because we're busy all year round with commissions and things. I just don't have time now just to make things. So our annual product runs, we do around about 350 1 ounce bars, about 200 100 gram bars, and then about 100 round pieces in 3 ounce size, and about 50 in 1 ounce size. And then we do just ad hoc things like if a customer wants a sphere or a big heart, or we do custom projects. Like this was a Giant's Causeway piece that we made with 7 individual bits and things like that. So we'll just do ad hoc bits here and there. Or even one of our most popular things right now is doing things like a silver chess set. So I'm currently working on a silver chess set,
I like that.
which is going to be amazing. And so all told, I know because I do the bookkeeping, I usually average around 65 kilos of silver a year sold of product. So it's quite a lot. And I do it in production runs of my furnace. So at the moment, I'm not pouring this month, but come September, I'm going to be basically pouring at least 5 hours a day. And that usually ends up being, our sort of way we do it, which is crowd it all into 1 month so I can have a break the next month and just not work in front of a hot furnace all the time.
So what, you pour month on, month off, or?
Pretty much, yeah. I try and do the production run side, like the 1 ounce bar. So what I'll be starting in September is creating the 2025 editions of these. The only difference is I won't be able to get them hallmarked until 2025 comes around because they changed the letter on it for the year, so you can tell which year it was made in. But I'll at least be able to pour the 350 1 ounce bars in September, and then that's going to take up a lot of time. It's as I say, it's going to be at least 5 hours worth of pouring per day. And then I've got all my other sort of responsibilities in work and life and family and everything to work around as well. So 5 days a week, 5 hours a day in front of the furnace is time consuming. It takes a lot of time, but that's what we do to make the good pieces. So
yeah, anyone that's done anything with a furnace and pouring metals would appreciate that 5 hours is a pretty full on day.
And I tell you, sometimes, and the thing most frustrating about pouring silver is that you can never have 2 perfect days in a row. Like one day you'll have a day and it'll be sublime. You'll get the most beautiful looking bars. They'll come out perfect every time. You'll get 50 bars made in a day and it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm like, this is great. If I do that tomorrow, I'm ahead of the game. And then tomorrow comes around and you've got your muscle memory slightly off and you're pouring too much or too little, or the ripples don't work, or the ambient temperature in the room is making the silver do funky things with air pockets, or the graphite mold's like 20 degrees hotter than it was the day before. So it's not quite the same. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I love about it as well, because that challenge keeps me entertained with it. If it was just monotonous, boring factory production, I wouldn't enjoy it. But the challenge of it, it's fascinating. So
have you ever thought about automating any of your processes so you can go, I wouldn't say mass produce, but certainly increase your production? Or are you really happy just being the artisan that you are?
I'm very happy with the artisanal side of things. So I even do all of the stamping by hand. So we don't have a press, literally just a big hammer, to quote an Australian, a ruddy big hammer, and just hit it hard. That's what I do. Actually, I realize I've just done that quote completely out of context, but that was when I was in Australia and we went trout fishing, and I'd never fished a day in my life, and we caught a trout, and the guy said, I said to the guy who's running the experience, he's like, well, what do I do now? And he was like, there's a ruddy great big hammer over there, so whack it on the head. I was like, oh, sure, okay. Anyway, so yeah, I do it all by hand. And I like that. I could get a machine press and do it, but I think that maybe sometimes loses a little bit of the artisanal touch to it. If you're just having the stamp and the uniformity of everything, for me, that's not what my brand is all about, and it's not what I think my customers have come to expect either. So I feel like it would be almost cheating somewhat to change that now. Certainly for my core products, maybe like for unique things I create in the future, it would be okay to do that kind of thing. But I just don't feel the need or demand to do it. I'm quite happy with my lot right now, and like I say, I'm not in this to make millions out of it. It's just a really creative little artisanal business that is great for me and keeps me sane and out of the corporate world of business, and that's something that I am very grateful for. So
look, you produce an incredible product.
Thank you.
And everyone says that. It's the lumps and bumps in it, I think, are what adds the character and why people love them. So I would certainly stand by you in saying don't automate, stay with what you've got. It's a unique product, and I think it's fantastic.
I think, the marketplace right now is very crowded for silver and gold. It's certainly changed a lot. I think you'll probably agree with me since you start with your bullion side of business back in 2018. It has changed so drastically. So many products out there all around the world. I think if for anyone, whether you're pouring silver or whether you're a private mint making coins, you've just got to carve out what's right for you, find what you're good at, and be proud of it, and stick with what you're good at. Because if you just try and get into all of these other things, I analyze it as a little bit like throwing the brown stuff at the wall and hoping something will stick. And that's not always going to happen for people. And if you're just good at something, stick with it and be happy with it.
Yeah, look, it's been funny. The last week, I've had this conversation several times with different people, producers, customers, other bullion dealers, where a lot of the manufacturers thought 2021 and 2022, when the world was booming, that was just going to keep going forever. So they've put in massive amounts of production capabilities, and now when things have quietened down on a bulk sense, they're twiddling their thumbs a bit. I know actually when we were in Berlin, we were talking to one of the manufacturers over there at Berlin, and they were saying, what do you want us to do? We can produce 50,000 units a shift, and we've got machines sitting idle. So you tell us what you want and we'll produce it. And it's just mind-blowing. Even Perth Mint has just installed some new manufacturing equipment over there, and it makes me a little nervous actually, because there is so much capacity in the industry, because everyone's done what you basically described. They've just gone, we'll just bring in more machinery, and we'll just, what's better than a good product, and that's more of a good product. And they've kind of shot themselves in the foot, I think, to a large degree, and it'll be a lot of years before the industry can absorb the amount of excess capacity it's currently got.
I completely agree. And I think it will be telling who's still around in 5 years. Which of these private mints will still be in business, or which big national mints will still be producing the quality that will still be in demand. Because at the moment, there's a lot of quantity, which is not, some of it's selling, but they're not how it was in 2021, if you know what I mean. So we're past like the boom of, like the Great Engraver series from the Royal Mint, for example, was, I think, the peak. You hear the Una and the Lion coins selling for 10x or even more what they were sold at. That's never going to happen in the short term again. And the market's so crowded, and the wallet fatigue is real. Like, people here in the UK, you hear it all the time. The Royal Mint's bringing out coins nearly every other week, and you can't keep up. If you bought every single issue, even in the silver, you'd be spending tens of thousands a year trying to keep up with what various different mints all around the world are doing. So it will be interesting to see where and who is still going and going strong in 5 years' time, even longer. I don't know.
One of the biggest problems, I'm trying to search for the right word here, but one of the biggest disservices that 2022 did to the bullion industry, or to the coin industry, was it instilled this false sense of belief that you could produce anything. And I'm not having a go at any particular mint here. This is across the board. The good mints and the not so great ones, where you could produce anything of any dubious design and quality of presentation that you wanted, and the market would just hoover it up. And they did in huge numbers in 2022. But that is still impacting on us today, where there is still this belief that I can just produce garbage and the market will swallow it. And it's not anymore. The market is pushing back, saying, actually, that's garbage. I don't want that.
I think you're right.
I just want these select pieces that are good quality at a good price.
So this sort of brings me on to a question which I think is quite interesting for both of us being content creators, is where do you view the role of social media and content creators in this sort of industry at the moment? Because from my perspective, there's a lot of companies who want to advertise, who want to send me product to showcase and look at. And I turn down people all the time who just say, we want to send you something, but you have to say this and you have to say that. And I don't work with companies like that. If a company wants to send me something and they give me completely free reign to say whatever I want, I'll consider it. But if they're going to come in with an agenda because they want it sold, I just think there's like a moral responsibility. But what do you think about the sort of social responsibility of content creators?
I totally agree with what you're saying, to a point where I mean, it's a little unfair for us because our social content is advertising for the business, like for Bullion Now.
Sure.
So there is
Yeah.
a degree of almost hypocrisy by me saying, I don't believe we should do that to sell things when that's exactly what we do.
I think there's I didn't mean to interrupt too much, but there's a difference there between promoting your business and brand to like the fear mongering saying you have to buy, if you don't buy silver now, you're going to regret it. And those kind of context of things.
That really grinds my gears.
It does, doesn't it?
That really upsets me. When you see some of these, if silver's going to hit, $400 an ounce in the next 10 minutes and you've got to buy it. And I just, we see the other side.
Oh, by the way, there's a link in the description that you can buy it from that. Yeah, affiliate bonus codes and all of this. And
But
anyway.
we see the other side of that where people come in and they'll say, I've got to buy it right now. I've been told by, Mr. X or, XYZ or whatever it is that, silver's going to go through the roof in any minute now, or gold's going to, do this massive run. And even if you say to them, just calm down, we're not running out. We've still got plenty. It's all right. I've got to spend my hard-earned money right this second because, I'm going to miss out. And they're going to be back within a month or two, bitterly disappointed, hating precious metals as an investment because it hasn't happened. And it just it devastates me. And I think more and more we have maybe a moral responsibility to actually get out there and educate. And it's why I like channels like yours and I hope ours, where we're actually getting out there and we're saying, now hang on a second. This is a long-term investment. It's up at the moment. Yeah. It may not always be up. It might come down a bit. You may lose money in the shorter term. Your product you're buying today might be worth less tomorrow for a period of time. But history shows us over the long term that it's got growth. It's going to keep going eventually. And and that education that we talked about earlier of buy your precious metals from people that are reputable, but also sell your precious metals to people that are reputable, that are going to make sure that you get a good price, an honest price, a fair price for your product. And that's where I think our social responsibility is with our social media. Yes, we advertise, absolutely. And we're very open about the fact that I'm a bullion dealer and what I say comes with a certain taint to it. You've got to understand that I'm trying to sell bullion because that's what we do. But I still firmly believe that you can do that and stay ethical at the same time.
Completely agree. And that's the message that I've had on my channel from, I think, since the very beginning. I always say to anybody who's wanting to buy it, I harped on about it for so long, is exit strategy. Think about your exit strategy before you even buy. What are you going to do with it? Where are you going to sell it? How are you going to sell it? Because if you don't have that in your mind and something happens, car breaks down, boiler breaks, whatever it is, what are you going to do? And that's when you get the people who are really bitterly disappointed, like you say. And I can't, it's a weird thing to say as somebody who has a social media presence like me, but I hate social media. I hate it. I'm not on Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook for the last over a decade now. A lot of people always go, "Oh, you should be on Facebook. Your business should be on Facebook." It's like, no, I just need to. I have YouTube. I have the Silver Forum, and I find that almost too much sometimes. Like the fear of missing out can get even people like me, and I just don't like it. I'm not on Twitter. I've never been on Twitter. I was very briefly on Reddit when all of this Wall Street silver stuff came in, and then I just really went. I went, do you know what? Life is too short. I don't even care anymore on that side of things. So I deleted Reddit. But it's such a huge part of our world and how we form our opinions and form our decisions on things that we do and interact with. You've only got to look at the chaos in the UK that we've just seen of the rioting that's born from social media as well. And there are other issues that have caused it too, but social media has helped fuel it and fire it. And the same can be said for the fear mongering of silver and silver tubing, and like you say, those channels that just have the doom and gloom, silver to the moon. You have to buy it now. If you don't buy it now, you're going to be stupid and regret it. And even the visceral hate that I have had in the past by saying silver's actually not that great, guys. Gold's better. Historically, it's always been better, and it always will be better, and it's just better. And I get visceral hate and I get nasty comments. And then it's like, do you know what? Sure, you do you.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly
I
right.
try and be honest, and I just try and share it as the message that I can in the way that I can, and that's just, it's how I think that the world should be. But the world would be
I'm
a different
often
place if I was king and commander.
I'm often surprised, and we shouldn't be, but I'm often surprised at the number of times we get people approach us coming through the store or emails or phone calls that'll say, my partner, my father, my grandfather, whatever it is,
Mhm.
has passed away, has left me this precious metals. And in his will, he said, if you want to sell this, go to, well, in our case, go to Bullion Now. And I
Yeah,
think that shows that people start to respect if you do lead with that honesty, if you do keep that moral compass about you with when dealing with the customers and the education and that around it,
yeah,
I think it pays off in the long run. It may not in the
yeah.
short
You're
term, but
right.
it certainly does in the long term.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've had that exact question asked to me a few times on email from people saying, "Can I not put you in my will, but you know what I mean? Can I reference you in my will for
Yeah.
people who've got the precious metals?" It's a weird position to sort of think about being in, but um,
Yeah.
like you say, like I think educating yourself and educating it's great buying all this stuff and thinking you're never going to sell it if you're going to pass it down a generation, but think about what your future generation is going to do with it, how they're going to sell it. You don't want them to get ripped off.
That's
Um,
someone is going to sell it, whether it's you
yeah,
or who you leave it to or who they leave it to. Somewhere
yeah,
down the chain, someone's going to sell it because you don't eat this stuff. You don't wear
no,
it. I mean, you might wear
no,
jewelry, but eventually someone's going to sell it. So
totally,
if you've got that best interest at heart, you've put your hard-earned capital into securing this precious metal. Always, and you said it before, and we say it frequently in the shop, start with the end in mind. If I'm going to pass this down to my kids or my partner or whoever it is, the grandkids, so on and so forth,
yeah,
help them understand what to do with it when they need to liquidate
yeah.
it.
So that's part of the reason that I'm doing my liquidation of my 1 ounce gold, sort of a fair proportion of my 1 ounce gold is going into sovereigns because I feel like that ease of liquidity is
Mm,
better if I just drop down dead tomorrow. And I've got now, because without giving my exact age away, I'm settling firmly into my middle age. And, as you start to get older, um, mortality starts getting on your mind. You think, well,
mm,
okay, I'm not here forever. And one day that's going to be a thing. And if that day comes sooner than expected, what's going to be left behind and how is it going to be managed? And I've got a death Word document. I've got a little document that I've got on a USB with the wills. And it's like, if I'm not here anymore, this is what we've got. This is where it is. This is how you get it. And this is what you should be selling it to and for, and don't do this and don't do that. And, it's
yeah,
just, I think, common sense. And a lot of people put their head in the sand about it and go, it's not my problem. If I'm dead, it'll be someone else's problem. But that's a very selfish way of looking at it.
yeah.
Um, and it's not, you wouldn't do it for yourself, would you? Like if you've got that as an investment,
Mm,
take it seriously.
yeah.
So
My wife and I have a hit by the bus file, we call it. And
yeah,
it's literally just that. These are the things that either my wife needs to know or I need to know,
yeah,
and what the kids need to know. And we're actually just in the process of updating that because my kids are now at the next stage of life. They're flying the nest, flying the
mm,
coop, and
mm,
and moving on,
mm,
sort of thing. So it's kind of we're changing from how do we look after the kids to how do we boost them in later life with you know
yeah,
housing and that type of thing as it moves
yeah,
forward. So
totally.
it's slightly morbid, but interesting times.
It is, I mean, look, it's a morbid thing, but I think it's an honest reflection of where you need to be in life and because let's be honest, the average age of a stacker is not going to be young.
Mm,
It's more of you've got the expendable income later in life. Perhaps you've settled into a career and you have your house. I always say you shouldn't borrow money to buy gold and silver, and that's a big thing for me as my message, with the exception perhaps of your house. If you've got your mortgage, okay, that's a long-term investment in many ways. You're paying off your mortgage. I'd say pay off your mortgage before you buy a boatload of gold and silver, but you can still invest in gold and silver and have a mortgage.
mm.
But generally, you need to prepare for these things, and life does trundle along faster than people think. Blink, and you're suddenly middle aged, and then suddenly you're in your later stages, and
Yeah.
it's just the way of the world.
Mo- Moving from the slightly morbid, are you
Yes,
finding
let's
in
move
the
on.
UK that the stackers are getting younger every year?
Well,
I'm not
that's a
just
good one.
talking
I
about you
don't.
feeling like you're getting older. I'm meaning,
Well,
statistically, do you think that the stackers are getting younger?
statistically, is a difficult one to comment on because I don't often know the age of all of my customers.
Mm,
We don't necessarily collect all of that data on every single purchase, for example, and I certainly haven't on the data that I have collected through my website platform. I haven't analyzed that data, so I couldn't possibly comment. But what I notice on, for example, YouTube um, statistics and analytics is that average age of my viewer is different now to when it was when I started. So I do think more younger people are getting into silver and gold.
mm,
Um, I think a lot of that had to do with things like the Wall Street silver side of things. There was a lot of bad about that, but there was also a lot of good because it did open the eyes to the world of silver and gold for a lot of other people that
yeah.
I think is beneficial. Um, if some people who went in there and went overboard with what they were doing, they'll have learned a hard lesson. But I think a lot of people have learned good lessons about gold and silver as well. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing. So I think generally, yes, there are some younger sort of generalization across the board, but um, it's a difficult one. Do you ask that question because you've noticed a change in your side?
We absolutely have noticed a change in Australia. I remember going back 10, 15, 20 years where, and admittedly, I was younger back then, but I was definitely the youngest in the room by a
Mm,
large margin.
mm,
Whenever I went to any meetups or auctions, or even if I was in another coin store or bullion store or anything along those sort of lines, and even in our own at that stage, I was usually the youngest by far. And it was definitely a male crowd that we were dealing with. Whereas
yeah.
nowadays, it's not unusual for even younger kids, actually, like in their teens, or even younger sometimes, but particularly in that 20s age group, which we never would have seen even 6 or 7 years ago,
Mm,
and a higher proportion of women coming in as well,
mm,
which is the whole lot is really good to see because it shows that people are younger people are interested in their financial futures far earlier than my generation was, and I think it's only a positive, and to see women coming in and actually taking responsibility for their own financial futures and having these hard conversations with us of why would I do that and how do I do that and what's the best way to do that and what do you think to this and why that. it's
yeah,
it's it's fantastic to see and experience and be a part of, seeing that younger movement come through, and it
for
really
sure.
excites me because I
That's
remember
good.
thinking, oh, 8, 10 years ago, is this the end? Am I the last generation of stackers to move through society? We're going to go completely digital and it's all going to disappear. And I think it's been the complete reverse.
I would tend to agree. I think with the boom that we've seen in the precious metal industry worldwide, that's only captured more people. There's only so much that a individual can have, so you have to have new customers coming in at the bottom end to feed that engine. I just pulled up some of my YouTube stats. Very interestingly, I don't know if the camera's going to focus on it, but you can see sort of the age brackets. It's actually fairly, 25 to 44 is the big one, around
Yeah.
50%. Um, which is, I think, fascinating. That's different how it was back. I don't think I can get a sort of snapshot of 2018 very easily, but when I look back, it's definitely changed. So
But even below
uh,
25 was still I mean, it wasn't a huge percent, but it was still a fairly high, I
yeah,
would have
10
said a
well,
fairly high
10%. Yeah,
percent.
so if we add up the 18 to 44, then that's a good what 47, 58%.
Hmm.
So that's quite a lot.
Which I would have said, even 5 years ago, but particularly 10 years ago, would have been nothing like that at all.
Mm, yeah,
So yeah, fascinating, I think. And
and
only for the plus side of it. Um, it's good to see.
yeah. I'm fascinated by all those analytics on YouTube. I don't know how much you pay attention to them, but it's amazing how much they can delve down into these kind of things.
Yes,
But
definitely. Are
scary as
you
well.
um is stacking, is gold and silver, um investing, is it part of the UK psyche?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's certainly growing. I think we've got a really good UK stacking community that's grown a lot in the last 2 years. It's grown a lot. There's a lot of new UK content creators that have come to the fore, small and big, just really devoted to making content, which is great. In terms of like a wider culture of stacking, I don't think so. I think if you go out and canvas, you'll find 95% of people have no idea what the price of gold, silver is.
Mm.
And certainly when I've had close friends that know what I do, I don't tell every single person I ever meet what I do. But when they come around and I bring out some shiny things to play with, and I like, for example, bring out the cannonball and I give it to them and they go, "My God, it's so heavy." And it's like they look at it and go, "How much is that worth?" And I tell them, well, 30 ounces of silver just on its own is worth 600 odd quid. They just are flabbergasted by it. And then for them that a gold coin can be worth nearly £1,900 is maddening. So I don't think it's ingrained in our psyche. There's a definite cultural difference between the UK and, say, the US. I don't know about Australia. I think because you've got a rich gold and silver history in terms of your mining history and gold production and stuff. Is it more ingrained in the Australian psyche? Would you
No,
say?
this is it. We all know about the gold rush, and particularly in Victoria and in WA as well, in Western Australia. It's taught in all the schools, and it's we live it because the Golden Triangle is only an hour, 2 hours up the road from where I'm sitting right now. The
Yeah.
area where I live is very rich in gold deposits, so we're very big into mining gold, but we're not big into having it as part of our investment culture at all.
Oh, okay.
And that was, I wouldn't say a shock, but it was a real eye opener when we opened the store, and we started interacting with a lot of other cultures from around the world. You look at the Indian culture; it's very, very, very embedded into their culture.
Yeah.
A lot of the Eastern European culture, it's very embedded from generation to generation. It is embedded into their culture that you do buy gold and you store gold, and it's the way to store your wealth and protect it. And you move into a lot of the Asian cultures, and it's exactly the same. Whereas your average Australian, yeah, sure, it was mined out of Ballarat during the gold rush, but that's about the extent of it in our knowledge base. So it's changing, similar to what you've said in the UK. Although in some ways I'd suggest the UK is a little bit ahead of Australia in that. But
Sure.
it's good to see it moving in a positive direction, I suppose, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Of course, we haven't even mentioned the US culture of stacking, which is, why my channel is called Backyard in the first place, because like the US market is not to be ignored. They are very good at stacking silver and gold, and they have been for a very long time. And that market is huge compared with us, and the ingrained nature of it. It's just a simple thing, like there are just so many different coin shops and coin stores, and they call them LCS, local coin shops and local coin stores and everything. Here in the UK, you hardly have any, and any you do find are not going to be paying you the right amount for anything. You go in there, you're going to be overpaying. If they sell to them, they're going to rip you off. So, it's the rare bullion dealer in the UK that will have a presence in London, for example, like Hatton Garden Metals or Baird and Co in London and so on. That they're the real only options. So the culture there is always different. I remember when I got started, people were always asking me, "Oh, where's your local coin store? Where'd you get all of these wonderful things?" So I buy it online. I have to because that's the culture here in the UK. Can't just go into a shop and buy them, unfortunately. So,
but you go over to like Germany and go into Berlin there, and there's bullion dealers all over the shop.
Yeah.
So
the Germans are big on it. They do like their stacking.
Well, they did have a period of hyperinflation there that kind of encouraged
a little bit. Yeah, remember the photos of the wheelbarrows of cash. That's not where you want to be.
No.
But so yeah, talking of Berlin again, very much looking forward to going. It's going to be my third year going next January. It's a great experience, isn't it? Like it's the place to go in the world for singular. It's huge. I couldn't get over how big it is in there. The London Coin Fair is like not even a tenth. It's less than a 20th of the size. It's ridiculous. So
it's always funny going because I usually take one or two guys from work here come across with me, and it's always funny watching them the first time going in because you go into the first hall and they go, "Oh wow, this is pretty good," And then
Yeah.
you take them through the door into the corridor that's
Yeah.
leading to the next hall, and they go,
And then you
"Wow."
come to the top of the stairs where you go down and you see all these other stuff. You go, wow, and then you go into the big conference center,
That's
and then
right.
that's like, oh, okay.
It's just,
It is mad. It's
yeah.
huge.
It's like the biggest coin show in Australia. It wouldn't even be the first like foyer area that you walk
Yeah.
into. Like it's tiny. And
And
then
do you know what's
yeah,
really yeah, do you know what's really funny is every time I've been so far, the singular mint with the longest queue is always the Perth mint.
yeah,
And
yeah,
last time round, I didn't do it the first time around because by the time I got in, the queue was like snaking round 2 hours or more, and I'm not standing in a queue for that long. Last time I got there, bang on door opening, got in the queue, and even then I had to queue for like 30 minutes because it had already been building.
yeah.
I got my Perth mint, kookaburras, and the new dragon.
Yep.
Loved it. Speaking with stackers in the queue, one guy, he was like, "Do I know you from somewhere?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he was like, "Are you Backyard Bullion?" I'm like, "Yes, yes, I am." And he recognized the voice because, of course, I'm faceless on YouTube, but standing in
Yeah.
the queue shooting the breeze with people, and he was like, "Wait a minute, I recognize that voice," and that was a weird moment, but yeah,
But it's fun. It's one of
oh,
the
it's a
things.
good,
There's a lot of reasons I don't like being on social media and all those sorts of things. But one of the things, and Matt and I talk about this semi-frequently, it's just fun when you go out, and we can go out on the street in Melbourne or even in Berlin. It was happening over there
mm,
where, people will stop you and go, "Oh, are you?" And
mm,
just the genuineness you get from them. And it's always great. The stacking community is fantastic. So
yeah,
it's always great meeting people that stop you. And I love the experience every single time. It's always
yeah.
been a lot of fun.
No, it's a weird one, and like I said before we turn the record on, my anonymity is important. Like the security, safety element of what we do and how we do it has always been important. Whether that'll change one day and I'll do a face reveal, I don't know. Who knows? That's the thing that YouTubers do apparently. But I kind of like just walking around the Berlin Money Fair and nobody knowing who I am. I get to
Yeah.
observe, and I quite like that. I quite like the observations of things and everything. But when I was at the stand with the Germania Mint team, and I was doing a
Yep.
little video. I got my camera all set up and had it pointed down at the bars and everything, and it was a hands and bars kind of thing. And there were definitely a few people who walked by and stopped and watched, and I think they coined that's backyard bullying there. Definitely. I mean, I can't say for sure, but that's kind of cool. It's nice to be an anonymous sort of figure. But when I've got 60 odd thousand subs, I had 11.8 million views on YouTube
Yep.
and one singular video with nearly a million views. And it's like those are staggering numbers to
Mm.
think about the fact that there's like a football stadium's worth of people who've taken the time to sub to my channel. But
Yeah.
that's not even like the tip of the iceberg because as with every YouTube channel, you'll get a load of views on your videos from people who aren't subscribed.
Mm.
So there could be 200,000 people who have independently perhaps seen some of my stuff, and that power, that voice is very scary and very cool and very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We had an interesting experience in Berlin there. We were talking with one of the major mints, and I wasn't in the BN shirt or anything like that, and the guy had no clue who we were at all.
mm,
And
mm,
I was just chatting. I was trying to establish whether we could open an account with them,
sure.
um, and he was kind of brushing me off a little bit. And then this guy comes over and goes, "Oh, Michael, I watch you on YouTube, and can I have a
Mm,
photo with you?" and all this sort of stuff. And like I said, I love it. I have a great time with him. So we chatted back and forth a bit. And when I turned around, this guy was like, eyes were the size of saucers, and he's going, Are you someone famous or something?" I'm going, "No, no, no. No, we've just got a YouTube channel." "Oh,
yeah,
okay." And then about 3 seconds later, someone else jumped in, and then a third person, and then we got the royal treatment from that mint because they thought we were
amazing.
someone.
I've always got a great story which I tell about the Pressburg Mint. Fantastic organization. They're really, really
Yeah,
good and their products are lovely.
yeah,
And I try and do a video every Friday, which I call In Focus Friday. I literally take something cool and I put it in front of the camera and I show it off. And I'd forgotten to film one, and it got to Friday lunchtime. I released my videos at 5 p.m. And I was like, oh God, I haven't filmed something. What do I film it on? I had a rummage through a drawer and I found a Pressburg mint bar. And I was like, I don't think I've shown that on the channel. I'll get that out. And I was like, how on earth am I going to spend like 5 to 8 minutes talking about this bar? And I haven't done any prep on it. I don't know anything about it, but it was in plastic. And I was like, oh, I know. I'll talk about taking it out of the plastic because everyone hates plastic and all of that. So I did. And literally unscripted, 8 minutes, just blurting out at the camera about this bar in plastic and how good it looked out of plastic and how it should be made out of plastic, blah, blah, blah. 100,000 views in 2 days.
Oh,
Like, hadn't
wow.
even, honest to God, it was ridiculous. Anyway, the Pressburg Mint then got in touch and were like, we've seen that that video blew up. We want to say a huge thank you. We want to just, send something to you as a piece of gratitude for the amazing content that you just created. And they sent me like 1.5 kilos of coins and bars and all these other things just completely for free and no strings attached. They were like, don't feel like you have to do any videos on them if you don't want to. We just really appreciate that you took the time to do a video on our bar and everything. And I'm like, well, that wasn't the intention. I can't say no. Thank you very much. This is wonderful. And since then, we've had this burgeoning relationship of, it's fantastic, and that's, I think, incredible. All born from a complete panic. Oh God, I need to film a video. I don't know what to film it on. I'll do it on that. And that's another thing that I hate about YouTube is that you can put a lot of energy and effort into something and really plan something and research it to its nth degree and film it, edit it well, make it all cool and funky, and it bombs. And then you do something like I did there and you get 100,000 views. It's all very strange.
One of
The
Ruben's
algorithm.
one of Ruben's many sore points is a video we did where we set fire to some safes to show
Nice.
what would happen to the metal inside it. And we'd talked about this. It was probably 2 or 3 years. We'd been back and forth on this one, and we are going to do it, and it was going to blow up the internet. It was going to be massive, and it flopped.
Oh no. Yeah, a good friend of mine who's not a YouTuber, but I always talk with him about YouTube stuff. He's now almost pseudo created a deity out of the algorithm. You have to appease the algorithm in some unknown way to be able to get the results that you want. And even then, he's a fickle god. And yeah, being a slave to that
exactly
algorithm.
right.
It's
I think
so.
it's probably the most expensive video I think we've made out of any of our videos at all. It just did
Yeah.
not go anywhere.
Yeah, it is funny. Like I've got a video planned, which I've been putting off for ages because it's going to be a laborious one. I have this old glass jar that I just put old loose change in for like 10 years. We've just had it forever. I finally filled it up. And I reckon there's probably about 500 or 600 pounds in there of just pound coins and 50p's and all of this. And I want to do a video going, I saved up all my loose change for 10 years, and this is how much gold I bought with it. And it'll just be like a 10th ounce gold coin or, quarter ounce gold coin. But the sheer laborious nature of me trying to do that and then have to go to a coin machine in the bank and film some things and edit all together. And I'm like, I just know it's going to bomb. I've got this great idea, but I feel like I just know it's going to bomb. So I'm trying to find a way to do it in my mind that will be a little bit more practical and a little bit, I don't know, spontaneous. And maybe I'll do it at some point. But at the moment, I've got this little box of about 500 pounds worth that I want to go and cash in at the bank. But I feel like I need to make a video on it because that's one of the things I've had an idea about. So we'll see.
Yes. Well, we've been going for almost 2 hours now.
It's
yeah. Or not. So
I know, and it's late at night for you. So this has been a real pleasure and a fun experience for me just to shoot the breeze with you, Michael. And if anyone is still watching to whatever timestamp we're in now, and you're not subscribed to Michael's channel and the Bullion Now team, then please do, because like I said right at the beginning, I listen to your channel. I'll have it on as a podcast in the background. I think you do some really informative content and down-to-earth content as well. And it's well worth a look. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Certainly, like I said right back at the start, you've got a lot of fans over here in Australia, and we're some of them. And yeah, there was a lot of excitement around the office when people started finding out that we're doing an interview with Backyard Bullion today. So yeah,
well, I'm glad
absolutely
that
subscribe and share and do all that sort of stuff with Backyard's channel as well. It is brilliant and it's different. It's certainly different, which is good.
We try to be. I think
Yeah.
you have to carve out what's right for you. And we're not a
Thank,
fearmonger.
thank you very, very, very much for agreeing and spending time with us.
My
it's been
pleasure.
an absolute
And
pleasure.
hopefully we can maybe sit down in January in Berlin and do something in person and
That'd
talk
be
then.
really good. We might
I think
even
it'd be
see your
quite fun.
face.
I don't know about on camera, but you'll see my face. The rare face reveal off camera. But
Fair
no, it's
enough.
good fun. It's good fun. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day because it's late at night. So I'll let you go to bed now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. That's excellent.
All right.